Hello, we're going to be talking now about multiplication with some signed numbers. And the first things that we can talk about, once again, with questions like this, the concepts themselves are fairly simple, but applying them and applying them consistently just takes time and practice and a little bit of concentration. The rule for multiplication with signed numbers is this works with any two numbers multiplied towards each other, is that if you've got the same signs multiplying each other, then your result will be positive. So that means if say I've got like 3 times 5, that would be a 15. If I had a negative 3 times a negative 5, that would that would also be a positive 15. So any any two, as long as they're the same sign, your result is going to be positive. So positive times positive is positive, negative times negative is positive. If you have opposite signs, then your result is negative, which means that say I've got, say I had negative 4 times 6. I've got a negative times a positive. My result is going to be negative. That'll be negative 24. Same thing as if I did, say, 4 times a negative 6. Positive times a negative, it's also a negative 24. Now, a couple things should be said about things like exponents. With exponents, it's very, very important to watch your parentheses. So a rule with exponents and signs. And things like this, first of all, exponents only apply to what they touch. Now, this might seem fairly self-evident, but believe it or not, the negative, positive or negative sign is not as attached to the number as we might think. So what that means is that if I've got a number like, say negative, if I've got negative 5 and I've put this inside a set of parentheses, this means my exponent is touching the parentheses, which means this would be the same thing as negative 5 times negative 5, which would be negative times negative, which would be a positive 25. This is not the same as the opposite of 5 squared. Here, the exponent only plays to the 5, but not the negative sign in front of it. This would be the opposite of 5 times 5, which would be the opposite of 25. Another way of thinking about this is I could say, well, I could almost think of this as, I'll do a little thought bubble out here. This is a little bit like saying I've got negative 1 times my 5 squared. So I'm thinking of a negative 1 times my 5 times 5, which is. So this is another way of thinking about that. Another brief little note on our signs and exponents. This one is hopefully fairly intuitive. But when it comes to exponents and signs, and this is going to apply to stuff inside a set of parentheses. Say I've got a negative number here, and I have this to an odd exponent, or actually any even exponent. So I'll do it to the fourth power. If I have an even exponent, then my result is going to be positive. And if I think about this, this means I'd have like negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. And if I think of negative times negative being positive, this will make some sense because I will always have pairs of negative numbers that the negatives cancel out. So negative 2 times negative 2 would be a positive 4, and negative 2 times negative 2 would be another positive 4. So this whole thing would be a positive 16. Now, if I've got an odd exponent, so not a multiple of 2, then my result would be negative. So say I've got something like negative 5 to the third power. This would be negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5. When I do this, I would have a pair, I would always have some pairs that would cancel out, give me like a positive 25, but then I would be multiplying this by another negative number. So I'd always end up with a positive times a negative. So this would be at negative 125. Otherwise, when it comes to these, I'll just let you know that it works with fractions. Always our quick note on fractions. Remember, when you're working with fractions, that I always say reduce first, then multiply. So before you actually go ahead and multiply, reduce anything on the top with anything on the bottom, anything that has a common divisor. I can divide both 7 and 14 by 7. So this would just be 1 times negative 1 times negative 3, which would be a positive 1. And 1 times 2 would be a 2. With decimals, the same rules also apply. So if I've got something like 3.4 times a negative 0.73, you're going to multiply these like you would any normal decimal. I would say, okay, let's do 3.4. This is multiplying negative 0.73. I'd count up my total number of decimal places. So I've got 12, 9, 10. I'll have a placeholder here for my 7. 7 times 4 is going to be 28. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 2 is going to be 23. I don't need to multiply my leading 0. I'll have 2, 8, 4, 2. And then I count up my total number of decimal places. So here I have 1, 2, 3 decimal places. Which means I put 3 decimal places here. 1, 2, 3 here. I had positive times negative, so my answer is also negative. All right, that's all I've got for right now, and we will see you in the next video.